Charles Leclerc doesn't want another what-if season, and Ferrari know it. While other teams are still living in 2025, Leclerc is already strapped into a simulator version of a car that technically doesn't exist yet. A 2026 Ferrari built around his biggest pain points: tire disasters, strategy chaos, and cockpit overload. Maranello has pulled the trigger early. January launch, secret shakedown, a new steering wheel designed so Charles can finally race like a killer instead of a part-time engineer. The question now isn't just, will Ferrari be fast in 2026? It's much bigger. Did they finally build a car worthy of Leclerc's talent, or is this his last roll of the dice in red? While most of the grid is still obsessed with squeezing one more tenth out of their current cars, Charles Leclerc's world has already shifted to 2026. Inside Maranello, he isn't looking at replays of last season's mistakes anymore. He's staring at tire temperature traces from Abu Dhabi, active aero simulations, and a steering wheel that doesn't even belong to the current era. For the outside world, Ferrari are preparing for the new regulations. For Leclerc, it feels like something bigger. The last best chance to finally get the car he's been waiting for his whole career. Leclerc has lived through every version of Ferrari's identity in the hybrid era. The hopeful rebuild, the sudden flash of pace, the mid-season collapse, the mechanical heartbreaks, the strategy memes, the radio messages full of frustration that went viral while his points slipped away. He's had weekends where the red car looked like a world beater on Saturday and an amateur project on Sunday. He's had seasons where his own brilliance was undone by tires falling off a cliff or an engine that didn't last long enough. That's why this 2026 project feels different to him. Not because someone in marketing said, "This is our year," but because, for once, the entire project seems to be built around something he's begged for since he arrived: predictability. It started properly in that Abu Dhabi test. For some drivers, it's the wind down, the last day at school. You jump back in, log some laps, wave at the cameras, and then disappear to the off-season. For Leclerc, it was the first day of something serious. Ferrari didn't ask him to chase purple sectors. They asked him to feel. How did the tires come in? How did they cool behind traffic? How much mental space did he have left while juggling hybrid modes and switches? How did the car react when he changed his line by a meter or took a curb slightly differently? It wasn't just about, are we quick? It was, can you trust this? When he came back into the garage, the questions weren't about ultimate grip. They were about repeatability, how stable the car felt underneath him lap after lap. The plan he's been shown for 2026 is aggressive in a very un-Ferrari way. The car isn't being held back for a theatrical February launch. It's due to be rolled out in mid-January, long before the usual circus even wakes up. That means Leclerc will likely get his first real taste of the finished 2026 machine in private, on a cold Italian morning, with no cameras, no tifosi, no pressure to top a timesheet. Just him, a new car, and a shakedown designed to flush out the software bugs and plumbing gremlins before real testing begins. For a driver who has too many memories of arriving at a first test unsure if the car will even complete a race distance, that alone is a radical kind of comfort. And at the center of everything is the thing that has made and broken his races for years: tires. Leclerc has lost wins because the tires died too early, because the operating window was too narrow, because 1 degree of track temperature turned a promising afternoon into a defensive slog. Ferrari's engineers have told him bluntly that the 2026 chassis is being built as a tire management weapon first and a show car second. The suspension concept, the way the car loads the rubber in slow corners and over curbs, the way the energy flows into the carcass on long runs, all of it is being tuned for stability, not party laps. Leclerc has always been ferociously quick over one lap, so the idea of sacrificing a bit of peak qualifying magic for a car that holds itself together over 50 laps doesn't scare him. If anything, it excites him. He knows that in his best Sundays, think of those races where he managed degradation perfectly, where he defended like his life depended on it. The only thing missing was a platform that stayed with him all the way. The 2026 project promises a car that doesn't suddenly transform under him mid-stint. A car that still feels like a Leclerc car on lap 45, not a stranger. Then there's the steering wheel. It sounds like a small thing, but for a modern F1 driver, it's half their life. Over the last few seasons, Leclerc has had moments on the radio where you can hear the strain of trying to drive at the limit and run a cockpit command center at the same time. Engine modes, energy deployment, brake balance, differential, lift and coast targets. It's a lot, even for someone as sharp as him. Under the 2026 rules, with more electric power and active aero in the mix, that complexity could easily smash through the ceiling. Ferrari's new wheel concept, which Leclerc has been quietly testing in simulators, is aimed at keeping that chaos under control. Fewer layers, clearer modes, more automation for the repetitive stuff. The goal is to put Leclerc back into a state where he can race instinctively again, not feel like he's defusing a bomb every lap. He knows he'll still have to make decisions. This is Formula One, not a video game. But if half the mental tax of managing systems can be taken away, that's half his brain he gets back for finding breaking points, reading rivals, feeling grip. In a field as tight as 2026 is expected to be, that difference could be everything. A calmer Leclerc is a faster Leclerc, and everyone inside Maranello knows it. Visually, the clearest sign that Ferrari are serious about giving him the right tools is that odd 2026-style front wing they've been running and testing. It wasn't about showing off some future look. It was about finding out how active aerodynamics actually behave when a real driver, in a real car with real bumps and crosswinds, is strapped in. Leclerc's feedback on that has been crucial. Does the front end feel natural when the aero mode changes? Does the balance shift smoothly, or does it feel like someone flicked a switch? He's the one who will have to dance on that knife edge in wheel-to-wheel combat. He's the one who will pay if a theoretical aero gain turns into an unpredictable front end into turn one. Then, of course, there is the power unit. Leclerc has endured more than his fair share of engine penalties, failures, and cruel DNFs from inside that red cockpit. So when the engineers tell him they're confident about power and energy recovery for 2026, the first thing he asks about is reliability. Can I attack every race without counting components in my head? Can I push in the early flyaways without worrying I'll pay for it with a grid penalty in Monza? The test plan he's been shown is almost endurance racer brutal. Long system runs, ugly heat scenarios, deliberately harsh conditions meant to break things now, not later. For Leclerc, that kind of honesty matters. It's one thing to hear we've got the numbers, it's another to see the team willing to stress test the car until something actually snaps. The biggest difference for him, though, isn't one part. It's how everything is being tied together. In previous years, Leclerc has often been left trying to make sense of a car that felt like it was designed by committees. One weekend, the engine was great, but the rear tires vanished. The next, the aerodynamics were strong, but the balance was weird on full tanks. The 2026 project feels, from his side, like the first time the whole car is being drawn around a single idea. Give Charles a platform he can trust from session 1 to the final lap of the race. He sits in meetings now where a change to suspension geometry immediately triggers an energy deployment discussion, or where an aero tweak leads straight to a talk about tire temperature and race stint profiles. His feedback isn't being dropped into a box labeled driver feelings and ignored when it clashes with numbers. It's being used as one of the core filters through which the whole concept passes. That doesn't mean he gets everything he wants, no driver does, but it does mean he feels like the car is being built with him, not handed to him. Of course, none of this exists in a vacuum. Leclerc knows that Red Bull with Ford, Mercedes with a new concept, and McLaren riding their championship momentum aren't taking a year off. He knows 2026 could easily become the most open, chaotic year of his career. The difference is that, for the first time in a long time, he feels like Ferrari's answer to that chaos isn't "let's hope," it's "let's prepare better than anyone else." If the 2026 Ferrari rolls out and from the first test gives him something calm, consistent, and alive under his hands, then the years of frustration suddenly become context, not destiny. But if, despite all this, the car still betrays him, if the tires still fall apart, if the systems still glitch, if the same old patterns reappear, then the questions about Charles Leclerc's future in red will get louder than ever. For now, though, he's all in on this project. The simulations, the tire maps, the new steering wheel, the early shakedown, it's all pointing towards one singular aim. Not just to make Ferrari competitive in 2026, but to finally put Charles Leclerc in a position where his talent isn't fighting his own car. If they've got it right, this won't just be Ferrari's new era. It could be the season where Leclerc's story at last matches the potential that's been obvious from the moment he first stepped into that scarlet cockpit.